"Mister, I know how to make your son walk again," said the poor girl to the millionaire. Robert Mitchell gazed out the window of his office. His thoughts were far away, fixed on his only son, who, after an accident during an equestrian competition 3 years ago, remained confined to a wheelchair. It was then that he heard a soft knock on the door. He turned, expecting to find Mrs. Celestine, the housekeeper who had worked for his family for more than 2 decades, but to his surprise, he saw a girl of no more than 13, dressed in simple clothes, standing at the entrance. "How did you get in here?" asked Robert, furrowing his brow. "My mom cleans your house, Mr. Mitchell. She's downstairs, tidying up the rooms," the girl replied, clutching a cleaning cloth tightly between her fingers. "I'm Gabriella, but everyone calls me Gabby. You shouldn't be up here, young lady. Go back to your mother." But Gabriella didn't move. She remained firm, looking directly at the man. "I saw your son," she said, her voice thin but determined. "In his room when I was helping clean the hallway." The businessman raised his eyes, now with evident irritation. "And that's reason to invade my office?" "Mister, I know how to make your son walk again," declared Gabriella, with a conviction that made Robert pause for a moment. He looked at that frail girl, with her hair tied in an untidy ponytail, and let out a bitter laugh. "You know what?" he asked, incredulity dominating his tone. "Do you have any idea how many doctors, specialists, and physical therapists have been through this house? The best in the country, the best in the world, and you think you can do what they couldn't?" Gabriella wasn't intimidated. "My grandma Zora took care of many people in our neighborhood. She taught me everything she knew before she swallowed hard. Before she got sick. I saw your son trying to move by himself, and I noticed he's doing everything wrong." Robert stood up, his patience exhausted. "Enough of this absurd conversation. I'm going to call your mother right now, and—" "He's not completely paralyzed," interrupted Gabriella. "He can move his left foot, just a little, when he thinks no one is looking, and his hands have spasms when he concentrates hard. That means the nerves aren't dead, just asleep." Robert Mitchell froze. That information about Lucas's involuntary movements wasn't something just anyone could know. Not even the medical team had noticed those details, only he had, spending hours observing every tiny movement of his son, nurturing hopes that the doctors insisted on destroying. "How do you know that?" he asked, his voice now a whisper. "I observe people, Mr. Mitchell. That's what Grandma Zora taught me. We need to observe to understand what the body is trying to say." At that moment, the office door opened completely, and Sarah, Gabriella's mother, appeared with a panicked expression. "For heaven's sake, Gabby, I'm so sorry, Mr. Mitchell. She slipped away from me. Come on, girl, let's let the gentleman work." "Wait," said Robert, still studying the girl. Something about that child awakened something he hadn't felt in a long time. Curiosity. "Tell me, Gabriella, what exactly do you think you could do for my son?" Gabriella smiled, a pure smile that contrasted with the seriousness of her words. "I can show exercises that will wake up his muscles again. It won't be quick or easy. It will hurt, and he'll want to give up many times. But if he's strong, in here," she pointed to her own heart, "he'll make it." Sarah pulled her daughter by the arm, mortified. "Forgive me, Mr. Mitchell. Gabby has always had this habit of wanting to help everyone. She doesn't know what she's saying." "Yes, I do, Mom," protested the girl. "Remember Mr. Jenkins? Everyone thought he'd never walk again after the accident. At the construction site, and Grandma taught him those exercises." "That's enough, Gabriella." Sarah was visibly embarrassed. "Let's go now." Robert raised his hand, signaling for them to stop. "Sarah, right? Leave your daughter here for a moment. I'd like to talk to her." The woman hesitated, the fear of losing her job stamped on her face. "Sir, she's just a child. Don't take what she says seriously. I'm not angry. I just want to hear more about this grandmother of hers." Sarah finally agreed, giving her daughter a warning look before leaving the room. When they were alone, Robert indicated a chair for Gabriella. "Sit down and tell me more about how you learned to help people." Meanwhile, upstairs in the mansion, Lucas Mitchell, 17 years old, watched the cloudy sky through his bedroom window. His fingers drummed on the wheel of his chair in an impatient rhythm. He had heard raised voices coming from downstairs, but he was no longer interested in what happened outside his room. His world had been reduced to those four walls since the accident. Just as his thoughts were darkening, as often happened on rainy afternoons, the door opened. Lucas expected to see Mrs. Celestine bringing his snack or one of the numerous doctors his father insisted on hiring. To his surprise, it was his own father who entered, followed by a girl he had never seen before. "Lucas, this is Gabriella," Robert introduced with an expression that his son couldn't decipher. "She has something to show you." Lucas looked at the unknown girl with distrust. "What is this now, Dad? Another one of your miracle experiments?" Robert didn't answer. He simply gestured for Gabriella to approach. The girl walked up to Lucas, showing no pity or discomfort, as many did when seeing him for the first time. "Hi, Lucas. May I?" she asked, indicating his hand. Before he could protest, Gabriella gently held his right hand. With precise movements, she began to press certain points on his wrist and bend his fingers in a specific way. "Do you feel anything?" she asked. Lucas opened his mouth to answer no, as he automatically did for all questions of this type, when he felt a slight tingling moving up his arm. It wasn't imagination, it was real. His eyes widened. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice betraying surprise. Gabriella smiled. "Waking up your nerves. They're just sleeping, not dead." Robert watched attentively, noticing his son's expression change for the first time in a long time. "She said she can help you, Lucas. How about giving her a chance?" The young man looked at his father, then at the strange girl who held his hand, in a way that none of the expensive specialists had ever tried. "Who are you?" asked Lucas. "I'm just a girl who learned from her grandma how to help people," Gabriella answered simply. "And you're just a boy who needs to remind his body how to move." For the first time in 3 years, a small smile appeared on Lucas Mitchell's face. That was how, on a rainy April afternoon, an unlikely alliance was born between a humble girl from the outskirts of Boston and the wealthiest family in Beacon Hill. What none of them could imagine was that their meeting would forever change the destiny of all. In the weeks that followed, Gabriella began visiting the mansion regularly. Robert had created an agreement with Sarah. The girl would come 3 times a week to work with Lucas, always under the supervision of one of the physiotherapists from the medical team. In exchange, Sarah would receive extra pay, something the family desperately needed, especially now that Grandma Zora was growing weaker. Dr. Marcus Adams, the primary physician responsible for Lucas's case, made no secret of his skepticism. "With all due respect, Mr. Mitchell, this is absurd," he said during one of their weekly meetings. "Letting a child with no training whatsoever interfere with the specialized treatment we've been providing for 3 years. "The results of your specialized treatment, doctor, are zero," Robert replied dryly. "I'm merely exploring alternatives." "Alternatives based on the folk remedies of an old lady from the projects? This could harm your son even more." Robert sighed, massaging his temples. "I'll be frank with you, Marcus. I saw something in Lucas's eyes when that girl touched him. Something I hadn't seen in years. Hope. Just for that, it was worth it. And you'll be there to ensure nothing harmful happens." The doctor shook his head, displeased, but he knew arguing would be futile. Robert Mitchell hadn't built an empire by being a man who easily changed his mind. Meanwhile, in the community of Hope Village, a few miles away, Gabriella was helping her mother care for Grandma Zora. The elderly woman had been bedridden for months, victim of an ailment that consumed her strength day by day. The small back room of the simple brick house was impregnated with the smell of herbs that Zora still insisted on using to relieve her pains, rejecting pharmacy medicines. "How was it at the rich man's house?" asked the old woman, her voice weak but her eyes still alive and attentive. "It was good, Grandma." The boy felt the tingling exercise in his arm. Zora smiled. "Did you remember to do the movements in the right order?" "Yes, just the way you taught me." The old lady held her granddaughter's hand with surprising strength. "Always remember, Gabriella, the body knows the way back. It just needs to be reminded with patience and love. Don't let those doctors in white coats convince you otherwise." Sarah, who was watching the scene while folding some clothes, couldn't contain her concern. "Mom, do you really think Gabby can help that boy? The best doctors in the country haven't been able to do anything for him in 3 years." Zora closed her eyes for a moment, a serene smile on her wrinkled face. "Doctors know a lot about diseases, daughter, but little about healing. Gabriella has the gift. She sees beyond what the eyes can see." Sarah exchanged a worried look with her daughter. Since she was small, Gabriella had demonstrated an unusual sensitivity, observing and absorbing everything around her. She spent hours beside her grandmother while she attended to people in the community with her unconventional healing methods. When Gabriella began to repeat her grandmother's gestures and techniques, Sarah tried to discourage her, fearing her daughter would become the target of mockery or worse, end up giving false hope to people. But now, seeing the gleam in the girl's eyes as she talked about young Lucas, Sarah wondered if there was something special about this gift her mother mentioned so often. The next morning, Gabriella arrived early at the Mitchell mansion. Mrs. Celestine greeted her at the door with a warm smile. "Good morning, little one. Lucas is already waiting for you in the physical therapy room." Gabriella followed the housekeeper through the luxurious corridors of the house, still impressed by the size and wealth of the place, so different from her humble home. In the room specially equipped for Lucas's treatment, the young man was already positioned in his chair next to Dr. Marcus, who maintained a closed expression. "Ah, our little healer has arrived," commented the doctor with barely disguised irony. Lucas shot a warning look at the doctor before turning to Gabriella with a small smile. "Hey, Gabby, I'm ready for today's torture." She laughed, approaching him. "It's not torture, it's awakening. Your body has just forgotten how to move, but we're going to make it remember." Under the doctor's attentive and critical gaze, Gabriella began the session. Her movements were precise and confident, as if she had been doing this her whole life. She worked with Lucas's arms first, then moved to his legs, always talking to him, explaining what she was doing. "This point here is connected to the energy that runs down the spine," she said, firmly pressing the side of Lucas's thigh. "When we activate it, it's like flipping a switch." Dr. Marcus rolled his eyes, but remained silent, noting everything on his clipboard. After 40 minutes of exercises, Gabriella asked Lucas to try to move the index finger of his left hand. He concentrated, furrowing his brow with the effort. To everyone's surprise in the room, including the skeptical doctor, the finger moved slightly. I did it," murmured Lucas, looking at his own hand as if he couldn't believe it. "This may just be an involuntary spasm," Dr. Marcus quickly intervened. "It doesn't necessarily mean." "Try again, Lucas," Gabriella encouraged, ignoring the doctor. Lucas concentrated once more, and again the finger moved, this time a little more. "That's not a spasm," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm controlling it. I can feel it." The doctor approached, carefully examining Lucas's hand. "Do it again," he requested, his tone now serious and professional. When Lucas managed to repeat the movement for the third time, Dr. Marcus could no longer deny the evidence before his eyes. He looked at Gabriella with a confused expression. "What exactly did you do? What technique is this?" "It's not a technique, doctor. It's just reminding his body how to move. The pathways are still there, they're just asleep." The doctor made a few more notes, visibly disturbed by what he had just witnessed. "I'll inform Mr. Mitchell about this," he said, quickly leaving the room. When they were alone, Lucas looked at Gabriella with teary eyes. "They always told me I would never move anything below my chest, that I should accept my condition and move on." Gabriella sat down beside him. "Adults like certainties, Lucas. It makes them feel secure, but life isn't made of certainties. How did you learn all this? You're so young." "My grandma Zora. She always took care of people in our community. Since I was little, I watched her work and I learned. She says, I have the gift of seeing beyond, of understanding what the body is trying to say." Lucas was silent for a moment, absorbing that information. "My father paid for experimental treatments in 3 different countries. He consulted specialists who charge more for an hour than many people earn in a year. And now, you." He didn't complete the sentence, but the look he gave Gabriella contained a mixture of gratitude and admiration that warmed the girl's heart. "We still have a lot of work ahead of us," she said, smiling. "This was just the beginning." What neither of them knew was that outside the room, Robert Mitchell had heard much of the conversation. His face, normally controlled and impassive, during million-dollar negotiations, now revealed an emotion he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. In the days that followed, a new routine was established in the Mitchell mansion. Gabriella came 3 times a week, always after school, and spent 2 hours working with Lucas. Dr. Marcus, initially skeptical and hostile, began to observe the sessions with growing scientific interest, asking questions and making detailed notes. Robert, in turn, had hired a private investigator to discover more about Grandma Zora and her healing practices. Not that he distrusted Gabriella's intentions, but his business nature prevented him from accepting something without fully understanding its origin. On a particularly rainy afternoon, the investigator entered his office with a thick folder. "I found some interesting information about Ms. Zora Williams, Mr. Mitchell," he said, opening the folder on the desk. "She's not just a folk healer as we thought." Robert raised his eyebrows, intrigued. "Go on." "For almost 20 years, she worked as an assistant to a Japanese doctor, Dr. Takashi Hirano. He was a specialist in traditional Eastern medicine and neurological rehabilitation techniques. He developed his own method combining Western and Eastern therapies, but was never fully accepted by the traditional medical community." Robert leafed through the documents, seeing old photos of a younger Zora next to a man with Oriental features in what appeared to be a clinic. "Why have I never heard of this doctor?" He returned to Japan about 15 years ago, after being the target of several lawsuits from the American medical community, which accused him of quackery. But the interesting thing is that his methods produced surprising results, especially in cases considered hopeless by conventional medicine. Robert continued examining the documents, finding testimonials from patients who claimed to have regained movement after treatments with Dr. Hirano when other doctors had given up on them. And this lady Zora learned his method. From what I could discover, she not only learned but collaborated in developing some specific techniques for children and adolescents. Dr. Hirano considered her his best student, despite her lack of formal academic training. Robert reflected for a moment, connecting the information. And the granddaughter, Gabriella, how does she fit into all this? Neighbors and acquaintances confirm that the girl always accompanied her grandmother during her treatments since she was very young. They say she has a natural talent for perceiving things that others don't see. There are several cases of people in the community who were helped by her, even though she's so young. Robert dismissed the investigator and remained alone, thoughtful. What had begun as a desperate attempt by a father to grasp at any hope for his son now gained more concrete and grounded contours. There was a real methodology behind what Gabriella did, even if not recognized by conventional medicine. His reflection was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Celestine. "Mr. Robert, Gabriella's mother is here. Says she needs to speak with you urgently." Sarah entered the office visibly nervous, wringing her hands. "Mr. Mitchell, I came to let you know that Gabriella won't be able to come for the next few days. My mother has gotten much worse and we need to stay with her." Robert noticed the fatigue and concern on the woman's face. "I'm sorry about your mother, Sarah. What did the doctors say?" She lowered her eyes. "We don't have money for private consultations, Mr. Mitchell. At the community clinic, they said she needs more detailed tests, but the waiting list is months long." Robert thought about the progress Lucas had made in the last few weeks. For the first time in 3 years, his son was regaining sensitivity and small movements in parts of the body that doctors had declared permanently paralyzed. And all thanks to the teachings of this woman who was now ill. What exactly is her health problem? The doctors suspect a serious heart condition, but without the tests. Sarah didn't complete the sentence, but the implication was clear. Robert made a quick decision. "I'll arrange for your mother to be seen by Dr. Vargas, the cardiologist who takes care of my family. I'll also pay for all necessary tests and treatments." Sarah's eyes widened. "But why? You barely know us." "Let's say I'm returning a favor. Your daughter has brought something back to my son that I thought was lost forever." Sarah couldn't hold back her tears. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Gabby will be so happy when she finds out. She worries so much about her grandma. Robert smiled slightly. I ask only one thing in return. Anything, sir. As soon as possible. I want to talk with Grandma Zora. I have questions about the method she taught Gabriella. Sarah seemed hesitant. My mother is very private about these things, Mr. Mitchell. She always said her knowledge is not to be commercialized. I don't intend to commercialize anything, Sarah. I just want to better understand what's helping my son. While this conversation was happening in the office upstairs, Lucas was impatient, waiting for Gabriella. When Mrs. Celestine entered to inform him that the girl wouldn't be coming, he didn't hide his disappointment. What happened? Is she okay? Her grandmother is sick, my boy. The family needs to take care of her now. Lucas was thoughtful for a moment. Celestine, do you know the house where Gabriella lives? The housekeeper narrowed her eyes, suspicious. Yes, why? I need you to deliver something to her. It's important. Reluctantly, Mrs. Celestine agreed. Lucas then asked for paper and pen and wrote a quick note. He folded it carefully and handed it to the housekeeper. Please make sure it reaches only her hands. When Celestine left, Lucas looked out the window, his thoughts distant. In the last few weeks, something had changed inside him. It wasn't just the small movements he was beginning to recover, but something deeper. Gabriella's presence, with her simplicity and wisdom beyond her years, had awakened in him a will to fight that he thought he had lost forever. That night, in the small house in Hope Village, Gabriella was sitting beside her grandmother's bed when Sarah entered the room with an expression that mixed relief and disbelief. Something incredible happened, Mom, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. The boss, Mr. Mitchell, is going to pay for all your tests and treatment. Tomorrow morning, a specialist doctor will come here to do an initial evaluation. Grandma. Zora, pale and weak, managed to sketch a smile. The circle is closing, she murmured. Energy always returns to those who distribute it. Gabriella held her grandmother's hand affectionately. You're going to get better, Grandma, you'll see. It was then that Sarah remembered the note. Oh, I almost forgot. Mrs. Celestine brought this for you, Gabby. It's from Mr. Mitchell's son. Gabriella took the folded paper and opened it, curious. As she read the contents, her eyes lit up. What does it say? Asked Sarah. He managed to move his toes today, Gabriella replied, with a radiant smile. On his own, without my help. He followed the instructions I gave him, and it worked. Grandma Zora, even in her debilitated state, seemed to gain a bit of energy with the news. See, the body knows the way. It just needs someone to show the direction. While the three women shared that moment of hope in the Mitchell mansion, Robert was quietly entering his son's room. Lucas was asleep, but there was something different. The covers were slightly disarranged at the foot of the bed, something that hadn't happened in 3 years. Robert approached and carefully, so as not to wake his son, observed his feet. That's when he noticed Lucas's left foot was moving slightly in small, controlled spasms. The businessman felt his eyes burn with contained tears. He left the room, as silently as he had entered, but his heart was lighter than it had been in a long time. In the weeks that followed, while Grandma Zora received specialized medical treatment, Gabriella couldn't continue her visits to the mansion. However, through notes exchanged via Mrs. Celestine, she continued guiding Lucas on exercises he could do on his own. Dr. Marcus, initially skeptical, was now intrigued by the young man's progress. During a routine checkup, he couldn't deny the obvious. The tests show increased neural activity in areas previously considered irreparable, he commented, examining the results while Lucas and Robert watched attentively. I can't explain how this is possible, but I can't deny the evidence. So there's a real chance of recovery? Asked Robert, trying to contain the emotion in his voice. The doctor took a deep breath before answering. I'll be honest, what we're seeing here defies everything I've learned in my 20 years of neurology. According to medical literature, these improvements shouldn't be possible after so much time of paralysis. But the facts are before us. He looked directly at Lucas. You're regaining sensitivity and movement gradually, but consistently. Lucas smiled, a true smile full of hope. It's Gabriella. Her method is working. Method? Questioned the doctor. What method exactly? As far as I know, she's just a child without any medical training. Robert intervened. I recently discovered that her grandmother worked for many years with a Japanese doctor specializing in neurorehabilitation, Dr. Takashi Hirano. He developed techniques that combined Eastern and Western knowledge, but they were never fully accepted by the traditional medical community. Dr. Marcus seemed surprised. Hirano? I've heard of him. He was considered a radical, almost a mystic by the medical community, but some of his studies on neural plasticity were interesting to say the least. Gabriella learned these techniques from her grandmother, explained Lucas. She says she's not curing me. She's just reminding my body how to move again. The doctor seemed to be in internal conflict. I need to study this more deeply. If what we're seeing here is replicable, it could completely change our approach for patients with injuries similar to yours. When the doctor left, Lucas turned to his father. We need to bring Gabriella back. I'm making progress, but it's much harder without her here. Robert agreed. I'll see how things are with her grandmother. If she can come back even for a few hours a week, that would be great. The next day, Robert drove personally to Hope Village. It was the first time he had visited the humble neighborhood where Sarah and her family lived. The difference between his reality and that of these people was stark. Simple houses, some unfinished, narrow streets, many without proper paving. When he arrived at the indicated house, a small light blue painted brick duplex, he was greeted by Sarah, visibly surprised to see him there. Mr. Mitchell, I didn't expect... Please, come in. The house was clean and organized, but very small and simple. In the modest living room, seated in a worn armchair, was a white-haired woman with a face marked by the years, but with extraordinarily alive and attentive eyes. Grandma Zora, I presume? Robert greeted, extending his hand. The elderly woman examined him for a moment before accepting the greeting. The father of the boy in the wheelchair, she said, her voice firm despite her apparent physical frailty. My granddaughter talks a lot about your son. Robert smiled slightly. And my son talks a lot about your granddaughter. She's making an incredible difference in his life. Zora nodded, as if she already knew this. Sit down, Mr. Mitchell. I imagine you didn't come all the way here just to meet me. Robert accepted the invitation, sitting on the simple sofa. Actually, I came to thank you personally for what your granddaughter has been doing, and also to better understand this method she's using with Lucas. At that moment, Gabriella entered the room returning from school. Her face lit up when she saw Robert. Mr. Mitchell, is Lucas okay? Has he been doing the exercises I sent? He's better than he's been in years, Gabriella. And yes, he's been following your instructions to the letter. Actually, he misses you and would like you to come back to help him, if possible. Gabriella looked at her grandmother, as if asking permission. Zora made a small affirmative gesture with her head. I miss him too, admitted Gabriella. He's trying really hard, you can tell. Robert then turned to Zora. I found out about your work with Dr. Hirano. Why did you never share this knowledge more broadly? It could have helped so many people. The old woman sighed. We tried, Mr. Mitchell. For years, Dr. Hirano tried to publish his studies, present his results, but traditional medicine doesn't easily accept what it can't completely explain. They wanted double-blind studies, control groups, all those things that don't capture the essence of what we did. Each patient is unique, each treatment needs to be individually adapted. And after he returned to Japan, I continued the work in my community in the way I could. Without resources, without official recognition, just helping whoever knocked on my door. Robert reflected for a moment. What if I could offer resources, a proper space, equipment, support to document and scientifically validate this method? Zora's eyes sparkled with interest. Go on. I'm proposing a partnership. You and Gabriella would have a space in the rehabilitation clinic I maintain alongside the hospital of my company's foundation. You could work with patients who, like my son, haven't found help in conventional medicine. In exchange, you would allow doctors to observe and document the work for scientific validation. Zora exchanged a look with her granddaughter before responding. And what would you gain from this, Mr. Mitchell? Men like you don't do anything without visualizing profit. Robert smiled, appreciating the old woman's frankness. First, the continuation of my son's treatment. Second, if this method is validated, it could be replicated and help thousands of people in similar situations. And yes, there's commercial potential in this, I won't deny it. But I'm willing to negotiate terms that are fair to everyone. Zora was silent for a moment, thoughtful. I have a counter-proposal, Mr. Mitchell. I'm listening. I accept your offer, but with a few conditions. First, the method will never be patented or restricted. It must be available to anyone who needs it, regardless of their ability to pay. Second, a percentage of any profit generated must be directed to create treatment centers in underprivileged communities. Third, Gabriella must be recognized as a co-developer of the method and have autonomy to continue this work when I'm no longer here. Robert considered the conditions. As a businessman, his instinct was to negotiate, reduce demands, maximize gains. But as Lucas's father, as a man who had witnessed the miracle that was happening with his son, his perspective was different. I accept your conditions, Grandma. Zora, we'll start as soon as your health permits. The old woman smiled, extending her hand to seal the deal. My health is improving rapidly thanks to the good doctors you provided. We can start next week. As he shook the lady's hand, Robert felt something strange, like a subtle energy passing between them. For the first time in his business life, he had the feeling he was closing a deal that was worth much more than money could buy. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, 3 months passed since the beginning of the partnership between the Mitchell family and Grandma Zora. The neurological rehabilitation clinic of the Mitchell Foundation had been adapted to accommodate a special space where Zora and Gabriella treated not only Lucas, but 5 other patients in similar conditions, all cases considered irreversible by traditional medicine. Lucas's progress surprised everyone. Now he could move both arms with increasing coordination and felt more and more sensitivity in his legs, although he still couldn't support them. His transformation, however, went beyond the physical. The once bitter and isolated young man now smiled frequently and showed a renewed interest in life. On a sunny afternoon, Lucas was in the outdoor area of the clinic, trying to strengthen his arms with exercises on parallel bars when Gabriella arrived for her daily session. Someone's excited today, she commented, smiling to see him so focused. Lucas looked up and smiled back. I managed to hold a pen and write my name this morning. First time in 3 years without anyone's help. Gabriella clapped, genuinely happy with the achievement. I knew you could do it. Your body is remembering. Lucas finished the exercise and turned his chair to face her. All thanks to you, Gabby. No one believed I could improve. Even I had given up. The girl shook her head. It wasn't me. You did. The hard work. I just showed the way. At that moment, Dr. Marcus approached, accompanied by 2 other doctors Lucas didn't recognize. Lucas, Gabriella, these are Doctors Campbell and Ramirez, neurologists from Massachusetts General Hospital. They've come to learn about the work we're developing here. The visiting doctors observed Gabriella with evident curiosity and a bit of skepticism. So this is the famous girl who's challenging everything we know about neurological recovery, commented one of them in a tone that mixed admiration and incredulity. Gabriella, accustomed to this type of reaction, just smiled politely. I'm not challenging anything, Doctor. I'm just using what my grandmother taught me. Dr. Campbell turned to Lucas. And you really believe these alternative methods are responsible for your improvement? Lucas looked directly into the doctor's eyes before answering. It's not a question of believing, Doctor. It's a question of results. For 3 years, I was treated by the best specialists, followed all the conventional protocols, and nothing happened. 3 months with Gabriella and Grandma Zora. And look at me now. To demonstrate his point, Lucas raised both arms above his head and moved them in circles, something that would have been unthinkable a few months earlier. The doctors exchanged impressed looks. We'd like to observe a complete session, if possible, requested Dr. Ramirez. Gabriella looked at Lucas, who nodded. Fine by me. For the next hour, the doctors attentively observed as Gabriella guided Lucas through a series of exercises that combined elements of acupressure, movements inspired by Tai Chi, and visualization techniques. The girl worked with impressive precision, explaining each step to the patient and the reason for each movement. "The important thing isn't just moving the muscle," she explained to the doctors who were noting everything. "It's waking up the body's memory, making it remember how it was to move naturally." After the session, Dr. Ramirez couldn't hide his enthusiasm. "Fascinating. Some of these movements have clear neurological logic, stimulating specific nerve connections, but others, I can't explain how they work, but clearly they're having an effect." Dr. Campbell, even more skeptical than his colleague, asked Gabriella directly, "How does a girl your age manage to understand and apply such complex techniques? This goes beyond simply repeating movements you saw your grandmother do." Gabriella thought for a moment before answering. "It's like when someone plays the piano, doctor. Experienced pianists don't need to think about each individual note. They feel the music. They instinctively know which key to press and with what intensity." The doctor studied her with a new look. "Have you always had this sensitivity?" "Since I was little. Grandma Zora says I was born with eyes that see beyond." "And how did you learn the specific technique?" "By watching, practicing. Grandma Zora taught me the fundamentals, and then it was as if my body already knew what to do." The doctor was silent for a moment, processing. "Have you ever thought about studying medicine, Gabriella?" The question surprised the girl. "My science teacher asked the same thing recently." "And what did you answer?" "That I don't know yet. I like helping people, but I don't know if I need to be a doctor to do that." Meanwhile, in the main room of the clinic, Robert and Grandma Zora were discussing the next steps of the partnership. "The results with the first patients are promising," Robert commented, reviewing the folders with the initial reports. "Lucas is obviously the most advanced case, but the other 5 are also showing signs of improvement." Zora, who seemed stronger and healthier after her cardiac treatment, nodded. "The method works better in young people and in cases where the injury hasn't completely destroyed the nerves. But even in the most difficult cases, some improvement in quality of life is possible." Robert closed the folder and looked directly at the elderly woman. "Grandma Zora, I'm considering expanding this project, opening an entire wing dedicated to this method at the Foundation's hospital, with capacity to treat dozens of patients simultaneously." The lady's eyes sparkled. "That would be wonderful. So many people could be helped. But for that, we need more people trained in the method. You and Gabriella can't treat everyone." Zora smiled. "I've thought about that, Mr. Mitchell. I've been observing some of the physical therapists and nurses here. Some have the potential, the sensitivity needed to learn. We can start training them." Robert hesitated before asking the next question. "What about documenting the method? Creating a manual, a protocol that can be replicated?" Zora's expression became serious. "That's the challenge, Mr. Mitchell. What we do isn't just a series of mechanical movements. It involves sensitivity, intuition, constant adjustments based on the individual response of each patient. It's not something you learn just by reading a book or following a rigid protocol." "I understand, but some level of systematization would be necessary to expand the treatment." "I agree. We can document the basic principles, the fundamental techniques, but those who apply it will need to be trained personally, learn to feel, not just to do." Robert reflected for a moment. "And what about Gabriella? She has an extraordinary gift, but she's also just a child. Shouldn't she be in school, living a normal life for her age?" Zora smiled tenderly when thinking of her granddaughter. "My granddaughter was never an ordinary child, Mr. Mitchell. From a very young age, she shows this sensitivity, this ability to understand the suffering of others and want to help. But you're right. She deserves a childhood, education, opportunities." "I have a proposal to make," said Robert. "How about a full scholarship for Gabriella? She could attend the best school in Boston, have access to quality education, and still continue her work here in adapted hours." Zora considered the offer for a moment. "I would have to consult my daughter and Gabriella herself, but it seems like a sensible solution. As long as you don't try to transform my granddaughter into something she isn't, or separate her from her roots." "I would never do that, Grandma Zora. Her gift is precious precisely because it's authentic." While this conversation was happening, outside the clinic, Sarah was watching her daughter working with Lucas from a distance. A mixture of pride and concern passed over her face. She was happy for the recognition Gabriella was receiving, for the difference she was making in the lives of those people, but she also feared for the future. "She looks like a professional, doesn't she?" commented Mrs. Celestine, who had approached without Sarah noticing. "Sometimes I forget she's only 13, Sarah replied, sighing. "Everything is happening so fast." Celestine put a hand on the woman's shoulder. "Mr. Robert mentioned the scholarship to me. It would be a great opportunity for her." Sarah bit, her lip unsure. What if she changes? If she moves away from us, starts to be ashamed of her origins? "Your daughter has a pure heart, Sarah. New opportunities won't change that." Sarah wanted to believe that, but a part of her feared that the world of the rich, with its glamour and possibilities, could transform her simple and generous daughter into someone different. Her thoughts were interrupted when she saw Gabriella running toward her, her face lit up with an excited smile. "Mom! Lucas managed to feel his knee today. He said it was like an electric shock running through his whole leg." Sarah smiled, hugging her daughter. "That's wonderful, my love." The doctors were impressed. They want to do a study with more patients. "Using our method." Sarah noticed the hour used by her daughter. Gabriella really felt part of it, co-creator of something important. "Mr. Robert talked to me about you studying at a private school," Sarah commented cautiously. Gabriella's smile diminished a little. "I know. He mentioned it to me too." "And what do you think?" Gabriella thought for a moment. "It would be nice to learn new things, have access to more books and knowledge, but I don't want to stop helping people. And I don't want to be far from you and Grandma." Sarah felt her eyes sting with contained tears. Her daughter might have wisdom beyond her years, but in many aspects she was still just a child who needed her family. "Nobody is going to separate you from us, my love. And I'm sure we can find a way for you to study and continue your work here." Gabriella hugged her mother tightly. "Thank you, Mom. You always understand." At that moment, Lucas appeared, skillfully, maneuvering his wheelchair to them. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, smiling politely. "I just wanted to thank you again for today's session, Gabby. It was amazing to feel my knee for the first time in so long." Gabriella smiled, proud. "You're working very hard. That's why you're progressing so quickly." Lucas then addressed Sarah. "Mrs. Williams, Mr. Robert told me about the scholarship for Gabriella. I hope you accept. She's brilliant and deserves all the opportunities." Sarah was touched by the genuine affection in the young man's voice. "We're talking about it, Lucas. It's an important decision." "I understand. I just wanted to say that, well, Gabby changed my life. Not just by what she does here at the clinic, but by her attitude, her way of seeing the world. Before her, I had given up. Now I have hope again." The young man's sincere words moved Sarah. She was beginning to realize that her daughter wasn't just applying physical healing techniques. She was touching souls, changing lives in ways that went far beyond treatment. As she watched Gabriella and Lucas chatting animatedly about his progress, Sarah felt a strange premonition. Her family's life had changed forever the moment her daughter decided to enter that mansion and say those brave words. "Mister, I know how to make your son walk again." Fate had woven an intricate web, connecting people from such different worlds, and now there was no going back. In the months that followed, many changes happened. Gabriella began attending Phillips Academy, one of the most prestigious schools in Massachusetts, with a full scholarship provided by Robert. Her mornings were dedicated to conventional studies, while her afternoons were divided between homework and work at the clinic, now 3 times a week. Adapting to the new school wasn't easy. Coming from such a different reality, Gabriella initially faced curious looks and some malicious comments from classmates who questioned her presence there. However, her natural intelligence and captivating personality soon won over friends and teachers. One teacher in particular, Ms. Helen of Science, was especially intrigued by the intuitive knowledge Gabriella demonstrated about human anatomy and physiology. "You have a remarkable understanding of the human body for someone your age," she commented after Gabriella made an insightful remark during a lesson on the nervous system. "Where did you learn so much?" "From my grandmother," Gabriella answered simply. "She taught me to observe and understand how the body works." The teacher smiled. "Well, you have a natural talent for science. Have you thought about studying medicine when you're older?" The question caught Gabriella by surprise. She had never thought so far into the future. Her life had always been about the present, about helping who needed help here and now. "I don't know, maybe..." "Think about it. With your intuition and dedication to your studies, you could be a brilliant doctor." That conversation planted a seed in Gabriella's heart. For the first time, she began to envision possibilities for her future that went beyond following in her grandmother's footsteps. Meanwhile, at the clinic, Lucas continued to progress. After 6 months of intensive treatment, he managed to stand supported by the parallel bars for almost a full minute, an achievement that was celebrated by the entire team. Dr. Marcus, who had initially been the most skeptical among the doctors, was now one of the biggest advocates of Zora and Gabriella's method. He had begun to scientifically document each case, each progress, creating an impressive database. "The results are undeniable," he explained to Robert during an evaluation meeting. "In all 6 initial cases, we have evidence of significant improvement, both in objective exams and in reported quality of life." Robert nodded, satisfied. "And what about the expanded study? How are the new patients doing?" "Of the 20 new cases, 17 already show some level of positive response. It's an impressive rate for conditions that were considered irreversible." Robert smiled, thoughtful. "You know, when Gabriella walked into my office that day, saying she could make my son walk again, I thought it was just a child's fantasy. Or worse, some kind of elaborate scam." The doctor laughed. "And look at us now, documenting what may be one of the biggest revolutions in neurorehabilitation in the last few decades. The question is, how do we expand this? How do we bring this knowledge to more people without relying exclusively on Grandma Zora and Gabriella?" The doctor considered the question for a moment. "We're making progress with staff training. 3 physical therapists are already able to apply the basic techniques with good results. Not at the same level of intuition that Gabriella demonstrates, but effective nonetheless. And what about documenting the method? We're creating a detailed manual with the direct supervision of Grandma Zora. She has been surprisingly cooperative, as long as we maintain the commitment to make the method accessible to everyone." Robert looked out the window, observing the clinic's courtyard where Lucas now practiced with a special walker, taking his first completely assisted steps, but steps nonetheless. "You know, Doctor, I've spent my entire life accumulating wealth, building a business empire. I always thought that would be my legacy, but now you can leave something even more valuable," completed the doctor, following Robert's gaze to Lucas. "Hope for those who had none left." That same day, returning home after school, Gabriella found her grandmother sitting on the porch, enjoying the afternoon sun. Grandma Zora seemed stronger and healthier than she had been in a long time, thanks to the treatment she was receiving. "How was school today?" asked the elderly woman when her granddaughter sat beside her. "Good. The science teacher said I could be a doctor someday." Zora smiled, a gleam of pride in her eyes. "And what do you think about that?" Gabriella thought for a moment. "I don't know. I like helping people like we do at the clinic. But I also like learning new things at school. You can do both, you know. The knowledge of science and the knowledge of the heart don't need to be separate." Gabriella looked at her grandmother with curiosity. "Is that why you never wanted to be a doctor, even knowing so much about the body?" Zora sighed, her eyes lost in distant memories. "In my time, my child, a poor black woman without formal education didn't have those opportunities. Dr. Hirano taught me a lot, more than any school could, but without a diploma, I was just a folk healer in the eyes of the world. That's unfair. That's how the world worked, but for you, the doors are open. You can combine what I taught you with the knowledge of modern medicine. You can be the bridge between these two worlds." Gabriella considered her grandmother's words, feeling the weight and responsibility that came with them. What if I'm not good enough? What if I disappoint everyone? Zora held her granddaughter's hands between her own. "You only disappoint someone when you're not true to your heart. Follow what feels true to you and you'll never regret it, even when the path is difficult." Gabriella hugged her grandmother, feeling the comfort and security that only she could provide. In that simple moment on the porch of her humble home, as the sun set on the horizon of Boston, she knew that, regardless of the path she chose, she would carry with her the teachings and love of Grandma Zora. But fate still held surprises for all of them. Surprises that would test the strength of that unlikely alliance between two such distinct worlds and show the true value of the knowledge that a simple girl carried in her hands. What no one knew was that while Gabriella and Zora were talking, quietly on the porch of their home, a person from Robert Mitchell's past was returning to Boston, bringing with her new challenges and twists that no one could predict. Anna Christina Mitchell, Robert's ex-wife and Lucas's mother, was landing at Logan Airport after almost 4 years living abroad. She had left shortly after her son's accident, unable to deal with the tragedy and with her own sense of guilt. But now, after reading in an international magazine about the miraculous progress of a young American previously considered irrecoverable, she was returning, motivated by a mixture of curiosity, remorse, and perhaps the hope of reconnecting with the son she had abandoned. What her arrival would provoke in that delicate web of newly formed relationships and hopes, only time would tell. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Anna Christina's return to Boston didn't go unnoticed by the local press. As a former international model and socialite, her arrival was announced in society columns, with speculation about the reasons for her return after years of absence. Some mentioned a possible reconciliation with her ex-husband, the powerful businessman Robert Mitchell. Others, closer to the truth, suggested that the reason was related to news about her son's surprising recovery. Robert learned of his ex-wife's return through his press secretary, who monitored any mention of the family in the media. "She's back? Now?" he questioned, a mixture of irritation and disbelief in his voice. "After 4 years without even calling her own son?" "According to the news, she's staying at the Ritz-Carlton," informed the secretary. "Should I make an official statement or take any measures?" Robert breathed deeply, trying to control the anger that was beginning to bubble up. "No. No statement. This is a family matter." He paused, thoughtful. "But reinforce security at the mansion and the clinic. I don't want Anna Christina showing up unexpectedly at either place." "And if she contacts you directly?" Robert looked out the window, his face reflecting years of contained resentment. "I'll deal with that when it happens." It didn't take long. That same afternoon, while Robert was working in his office at the mansion, he received a call from Mrs. Celestine. "Sir, Mrs. Anna Christina is here. She insists on seeing you." Robert felt his stomach sink. Part of him wanted to send his ex-wife away immediately, but he knew this moment was inevitable. "Take her to the living room. I'll be there in a minute." When he entered the elegant room, Robert found Anna Christina standing by the window, observing the garden. Even after all these years, she maintained the poise and elegance that had made her a sought-after model internationally. She wore a light linen outfit, her brown hair perfectly arranged in a sophisticated chignon. "Anna," he said, keeping a safe distance, "what brings you back after so long?" She turned slowly. Her face, still beautiful despite the subtle signs of age, had an expression that was difficult to read. "Won't you even offer me a coffee, Robert, after all these years?" "We're not in a social meeting. Why are you here?" Anna Christina sighed, abandoning the light tone. "I read about Lucas. About his surprising improvement. Is it true? Is he really regaining movement? Now you care." The bitterness in Robert's voice was palpable. "Where was your concern for the last 4 years?" "I didn't come here to fight or justify myself, Robert. I came for Lucas. I want to see him." Robert laughed humorlessly. "And you think he wants to see you? After you abandoned him when he needed you most?" Anna Christina lowered her eyes, the first demonstration of vulnerability. "I know I made unforgivable mistakes. I didn't know how to deal with the accident, with the guilt." "Guilt?" interrupted Robert, his voice rising. "What guilt, Anna? You weren't even there when it happened." "Exactly," she answered, tears now shining in her eyes. "I should have been there at the competition supporting my son. If I had been, maybe nothing would have changed, completed Robert, now in a more controlled tone. It was an accident, Anna. It happened. What isn't acceptable is how you reacted afterward. Anna Christina wiped away a tear that escaped. You're right, I collapsed. I couldn't be strong like you. I ran away. And I've lived with that remorse every day since then. Robert observed his ex-wife for a long moment. Part of him wanted to continue punishing her with harsh words, but another part recognized the sincerity in her regret. What do you really want, Anna? A chance to see my son, to ask for forgiveness, to be part of his life again if he'll accept me. And if he doesn't accept? Anna Christina breathed deeply before answering. Then I'll respect his decision. But I need to try, Robert. I need to at least try to fix what I broke. Robert walked to the window, standing beside his ex-wife, both now looking at the garden where Lucas used to play as a child. He's different, Anna. He's not that cheerful boy you knew. The accident changed him, and your abandonment too. I can imagine. But in the last few months, something happened. He started to recover not just movements, but also the will to live. Anna Christina turned to face him. I read something about a girl, some kind of healer. Robert smiled slightly. Gabriella, a 13-year-old girl who walked into my office one day and declared she knew how to make our son walk again. And you believed her? No, of course not. Not immediately. But there was something about her certainty, a wisdom beyond her years. And now, after everything that's happened, I can say she was right. Anna Christina seemed intrigued. How is that possible? The best doctors said he would never again. It's a long process, Anna. It's not magic. It's hard work, dedication. Lucas spends hours every day doing exercises, following the method that Gabriella and her grandmother developed. Grandmother? What are you talking about exactly? Robert gestured for her to sit down, and for the first time since her arrival, he also took a seat. I'll tell you everything, and afterward, if you're really committed, we can talk about a visit to Lucas. But I need to warn you, the final decision will be his. I won't force him to see you if he doesn't want to. Anna Christina nodded, a mixture of hope and apprehension in her look. I understand, and I appreciate the chance. Meanwhile, at the rehabilitation clinic, Lucas was focused on his daily session with Gabriella. In recent weeks, they had advanced to more complex exercises, now focused on strengthening the leg muscles that were beginning to respond to neurological stimuli. Try again, encouraged Gabriella, positioned in front of him at the parallel bars. Focus all your energy on your right knee. Lucas, supported on the bars with his arms, was trying to transfer weight to his right leg, focusing intensely on the movement. Drops of sweat ran down his face with the effort. I can't, Gabby, it's locking up. Breathe deeply. Remember what Grandma Zora said. The mind commands before the body obeys. Visualize the movement. Lucas closed his eyes for a moment, following the instruction. When he opened them again, there was determination in his gaze. With a visible effort, he managed to slightly flex his right knee and take a small step forward. That's it, exclaimed Gabriella, clapping. You did it. The smile that illuminated Lucas's face was radiant. Each small achievement, each millimeter advanced was celebrated as a great victory. It gets a little easier each day, he commented, still breathless from the effort. That's because the pathways are being reopened, like clearing a trail in the forest that's been abandoned for a long time. At that moment, Dr. Marcus entered the room, accompanied by Grandma Zora. How are we doing today? Asked the doctor, approaching to observe. He took a step, Doctor, announced Gabriella enthusiastically. A real step, transferring weight. The doctor approached, examining Lucas's posture. Impressive. The muscular response is improving each week. The latest tests show neural activity increasing in previously dormant regions. Grandma Zora observed, silently, a small smile of satisfaction on her wrinkled face. You look tired, Lucas, she commented, approaching. Let's end for today. The body also needs to rest to absorb the learning. Lucas nodded, grateful. Although he would never admit it, the sessions left him exhausted, not just physically but emotionally. Each reclaimed movement was an internal battle against years of disbelief and resignation. "Before we go, I have news," said Dr. Marcus. "Tomorrow we'll receive a visit from a reporting team from Health magazine. They're interested in doing a story about our work here." Lucas frowned. "A report? I don't know if I want to be exposed like that, Doctor." "I understand your concern, Lucas, but this could be an opportunity to spread the method to more people who need help. You wouldn't need to appear in the photos or be identified if you don't want to." Gabriella noticed Lucas's discomfort. "You don't need to decide now," she said gently. "Think about it carefully. Whatever decision you make is okay." Lucas smiled, grateful for the understanding. "I'll think about it, I promise." When everyone left, leaving Lucas alone to prepare to return home, he became thoughtful. The idea of public exposure made him uncomfortable, but at the same time, he felt a responsibility to share his experience. If his case could inspire hope, in others perhaps it was worth facing the spotlight. His thought was interrupted when Mrs. Celestine entered the room. "Ready to go, Lucas?" "Your father already called. Said he has something important to discuss when we get home." "Something important? Did he mention what?" The housekeeper hesitated for a moment. "No, dear, but he seemed serious." Lucas felt a twinge of concern. Rarely did his father use that tone, especially in the last few months when things finally seemed to be improving. "All right, I'm ready." During the journey back home, Lucas remained silent, looking out the window of the adapted car. The city of Boston passed by quickly, a sea of buildings and hurried people. Before the accident, he barely noticed the world around him, living in a bubble of privilege and unconcern. Now, each detail seemed important, each moment precious. When they arrived at the mansion, Lucas immediately noticed that something was different. There was an unfamiliar car parked at the entrance, an elegant imported convertible. "Whose car is that?" he asked Mrs. Celestine. The housekeeper seemed uncomfortable. "I think it's better if your father explains, Lucas." With a knot in his stomach, he entered the house, maneuvering his chair through the spacious entrance hall. Voices came from the living room, and one of them, a female voice, awakened a distant memory that made his heart race. It couldn't be. When he entered the room, the conversation ceased immediately. His father was standing by the fireplace with a tense expression, and on the sofa, elegantly seated as if she had never left, was his mother. "Lucas," she said, his name coming out like a sigh. The young man felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath his chair. 4 years, 4 long years without a visit, without a phone call, with nothing but occasional birthday cards sent from different parts of the world. "What is she doing here?" he asked his father directly, completely ignoring his mother's presence. Robert approached, placing a gentle hand on his son's shoulder. "Your mother has returned and wanted to see you. I thought you should have the opportunity to decide if you want to talk to her." Anna Christina stood up, taking a hesitant step toward her son. "Lucas, I know I have no right to appear like this after so much time, but when I heard about your improvement, I needed to see it with my own eyes." Lucas felt an explosive mixture of emotions: anger, hurt, confusion, and something else he couldn't name. For years, he had fantasized about this moment, imagined all the harsh things he would say when he finally faced the mother who had abandoned him. But now, confronted with reality, the words seemed stuck in his throat. "You heard about my improvement," he finally managed to say, "and all the years I was paralyzed without hope. Where were you?" Anna Christina lowered her eyes, accepting the accusation. "I have no excuses, Lucas. I was weak. I couldn't handle what happened. Instead of staying and fighting for you, I ran away, and there isn't a single day that I don't regret that." Lucas looked at his father, then back at his mother. "And now you think you can come back as if nothing happened? Now that I'm improving? That I'm no longer too heavy a burden for you to carry?" "It's not like that," protested Anna Christina, tears now flowing freely down her face. "I would have come back anyway. Actually, I was already planning to return when I saw the report. It was just the final push I needed." Lucas felt his own vision blur with contained tears. "I needed you. Not now. Before. when the doctors said I would never walk again. When I woke up screaming at night, when I wanted to give up on everything. Anna Christina took another step toward her son, stopping less than a yard from him. I know, and I'll carry that guilt forever. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Lucas. I'm just asking for a chance to be present now, if you'll allow it. Lucas remained silent for a long moment. Part of him wanted to scream, to expel that woman from his life forever. Another part, the part that still held memories of a happy childhood with his mother present, hesitated. Finally, he looked directly into her eyes. I don't know if I can give you that right now. I need to think. Anna Christina nodded, wiping away the tears. I understand. I'll respect your time. I'll be in Boston for as long as necessary. Lucas then maneuvered his chair, turning his back on both parents. I'm tired. It was a long day at the clinic. I'm going to my room. Robert made a motion to follow him, but Anna Christina put a hand on his arm, stopping him. Let him process all this, she said quietly. I've caused enough damage for one day. As Lucas withdrew, his heart was in turmoil. Amid the emotional confusion caused by his mother's unexpected return, a persistent thought was forming. He needed to talk to Gabriella. Somehow, that 13-year-old girl with her simple and direct wisdom seemed to be the only person who could help him understand the whirlwind of emotions that now assailed him. But what Lucas didn't know was that Anna Christina Mitchell's return would bring consequences that would affect not only his family relationship, but the entire delicate balance that had formed between the Mitchell family and the people from Hope Village who had brought hope back to his life. The next morning, Gabriella arrived at the clinic earlier than usual. She had received an urgent message from Lucas the night before, asking them to meet before the regular session. She found him in the physical therapy room, already positioned at the parallel bars, practicing alone. Lucas, did something happen? She asked, noticing the troubled expression on his face. He interrupted the exercise and turned his chair to face her. My mother came back, Gabby. Gabriella's eyes widened in surprise. Lucas had mentioned his mother only a few times, always with a mixture of hurt and sadness. When? Yesterday. She was waiting for me at home when I returned from the clinic. And how did you feel seeing her? Lucas sighed deeply. I don't... Tanosa, confused, angry, sad, everything at once. Gabriella sat on a nearby bench, leveling her gaze with his. It's normal to feel that way. It was a big surprise. She said she came back because she heard about my improvement, read about it in some magazine. Gabriella absorbed this information for a moment. And that bothers you? That she came back because of that? Lucas reflected before answering. Yes, as if I was only worth it now that I'm making progress. When I was at rock bottom, she wasn't there. She preferred to run away. People react to pain in different ways, Gabriella commented softly. Grandma Zora always says that not everyone has the strength to face suffering head on. But she's my mother, Gabby. It was her obligation to stay, no matter how difficult it was. Yes, it was, agreed Gabriella. She failed you when you needed her most. Lucas seemed a bit surprised by the frankness of the answer. So you think I should send her away? Not give her a second chance? Gabriella thought carefully before answering. I don't think anything, Lucas. I'm not in your place. I just know that forgiving or not is your choice, and whatever decision you make is right, because it's yours. But what would you do if it... Were you? Gabriella smiled sadly. I don't know. It's easy to imagine how we would react, but we only really know when we're in the situation. She paused. But Grandma Zora always says that carrying anger is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Lucas laughed lightly at the analogy. Your grandmother is wise. Yes, she is. But that doesn't mean you have to forgive your mother now or ever. It just means that whatever your decision, make it for you, not for her. Lucas extended his hand, holding Gabriella's. Thank you, Gabby. I think that's what I needed to hear. That's what we're here for, she replied, squeezing his hand affectionately. Now shall we work? You were practicing when I arrived. Show me what you were doing. With his mind a bit clearer after the conversation, Lucas returned to focusing on the exercises. He still didn't know how he would deal with his mother's return, but he felt less overwhelmed. What neither of them noticed was that Robert was observing the scene from a distance through the half-open door. He had come to check how his son was handling the events of the previous day and found him talking intimately with Gabriella. The Countess' expression on Lucas's face, more serene, more centered, said it all. That girl wasn't just healing his body. She was healing his soul too. Meanwhile, at another point in the clinic, Anna Christina arrived for an unscheduled visit. She was determined to better understand the revolutionary treatment that was helping her son. At the reception, she introduced herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to opening doors with just her name. "Good morning. I'm Anna Christina Mitchell, Lucas Mitchell's mother. I'd like to speak with the doctor responsible for his treatment." The receptionist hesitated, quickly checking the system. "Mrs. Mitchell, I don't see your name on the list of authorized visitors." "I am the patient's mother. I have every right to be informed about his treatment." At that moment, Dr. Marcus was passing by and heard the conversation. "May I help?" he intervened. Anna Christina turned, extending her hand. "Anna Christina Mitchell, I'd like to discuss my son's treatment." The doctor recognized the name immediately and gave an uncertain look to the receptionist before responding. "Dr. Marcus Adams, chief neurologist of the clinic. Please follow me to my office." Once alone, the doctor indicated a chair for Anna Christina. "How can I help you specifically?" "Mrs. Mitchell, I want to understand what's happening here. I read about miraculous progress, alternative treatments. What exactly are you doing with my son?" The doctor adjusted his glasses, choosing his words carefully. "There's nothing miraculous, Mrs. Mitchell. We're applying a method developed by Grandma Zora Williams, which combines neurological rehabilitation techniques with traditional knowledge of body manipulation." "And does this Grandma Zora have medical qualifications?" "Not in the conventional sense, but she worked for many years with Dr. Takashi Hirano, a specialist in integrative medicine." Anna Christina raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "So my son is being treated by someone without a medical degree? The treatment is supervised by our full medical team, ma'am, and the results speak for themselves. Your son is showing improvements that no conventional treatment managed to provide in 3 years. And this girl who was mentioned, from what I understand, a child is involved in the treatment." The doctor hesitated. The situation was becoming delicate. "Gabriella Williams, Grandma Zora's granddaughter. She possesses an exceptional talent for applying the method developed by her grandmother. We work in close collaboration to ensure everything is done with maximum scientific rigor." Anna Christina stood up, clearly dissatisfied with the answers. "Doctor, I understand that you're seeing results, but as a mother, I need to ensure that my son isn't being subjected to experimental practices without solid scientific basis. I would like to see this treatment in action." The doctor felt he was in a difficult position. On one hand, Anna Christina was legally Lucas's mother and had the right to be informed. On the other, Robert had been explicit about not interfering with his son's treatment, with questions that could shake the confidence built over the months. "Mrs. Mitchell, I can show you all the scientific documentation we're producing about the method. But as for observing a session, that would need to be approved by both your ex-husband and Lucas. The patient's emotional well-being is crucial for the success of the treatment." Anna Christina narrowed her eyes, her expression hardening. "Are you preventing me from seeing how my own son is being treated?" "Not at all. I'm just following established protocols. I suggest you talk to Robert and Lucas first." "I will do. So that, and doctor," she paused before continuing, "I sincerely hope this method is as effective as you claim, because if I discover you're giving false hope to my son, or worse, harming his recovery with unproven practices, I will use every legal resource at my disposal to stop it." With those words, she left the office, leaving Dr. Marcus concerned. He immediately picked up the phone to alert Robert about the encounter. On the other side of the clinic, oblivious to the storm that was forming, Gabriella and Lucas continued their session, celebrating each small progress as the great victory. It truly was. What none of them knew was that that day would mark the beginning of a new phase of challenges, not just for Lucas's physical recovery, but for the very continuity of the method that had brought hope back to his life. Anna Christina, didn't go directly home after leaving the clinic. Instead, she called an old friend, Dr. Helena Vaughan, a renowned neuropediatrician and university professor. The two met for coffee in Back Bay, an elegant neighborhood in Boston. "Anna, what a surprise to receive your call after so long," commented Helena, hugging her friend. "When did you return to the States?" "Recently, because of Lucas." Helena's face became serious. "Yes, I heard about the accident at the time, a tragedy. Actually, I'm here because I heard about advances in his recovery. It seems he's making progress with an alternative treatment." Helena leaned in, interested. "What kind of treatment?" "That's exactly the problem," Anna Christina replied, nervously stirring her cup. "From what I understand, it's some unconventional method applied by a lady without medical training and her 13-year-old granddaughter." Helena's eyes widened. "Excuse me? A child is treating your son?" "Apparently. Robert is completely convinced of its effectiveness. He even set up a clinic for them within his foundation." The doctor frowned, clearly concerned. "Anna, this sounds extremely irregular. As a doctor, I can't help but worry about scientifically unvalidated practices being applied in such a delicate case." "That's exactly what I think," exclaimed Anna Christina, relieved to find support. "The doctor who saw me there assured me they're documenting everything scientifically, but how can they validate something based on folk beliefs?" Helena took a sip of her coffee, thoughtful. "You said you're seeing results?" "According to Robert and the doctors at the clinic, yes. Lucas would be regaining sensitivity and some movements that were previously impossible." "Interesting," murmured Helena. "I don't want to completely dismiss it without seeing, as there are many phenomena in neuroplasticity that we still don't fully understand. But certainly, an independent evaluation would be prudent." Anna Christina leaned forward, intensifying her gaze. "That's exactly what I thought. Helena, could you do this evaluation? As an independent and respected specialist, your opinion would carry a lot of weight." The doctor hesitated. "This is complicated, Anna. I can't simply show up and demand access to your son's treatment, especially if Robert has legal custody. But what if I, as a mother, request a second opinion? I have legal rights too." Helena reflected for a moment. "Technically, yes. But before involving legal aspects, how about a more conciliatory approach? Ask Robert to invite me as a consultant. It would be less confrontational and more productive." Anna Christina smiled, a plan forming in her mind. "You're right, I'll talk to him. And Helena, thank you. I know I abandoned Lucas and don't deserve help, but this isn't for me. It's for his own good." "I understand, Anna. And regardless of the past, your son deserves the best possible treatment." Based on solid scientific evidence, the two women said goodbye, and Anna Christina left with a new determination. If there was something questionable about this treatment, she would discover it. Perhaps it was her chance to finally do something right for the son she had abandoned. That night at the Mitchell mansion, the atmosphere during dinner was tense. Robert had been informed by Dr. Marcus about Anna Christina's visit to the clinic and her insinuations about the credibility of the treatment. "Your doctor mentioned that you were at the clinic today," Robert commented casually while Lucas played with the food on his plate. Anna Christina, who had been invited to dinner at Lucas's own request, nodded. "Yes, as a mother, I needed to better understand this revolutionary treatment that's helping our son." Lucas raised his eyes, noticing the slightly ironic tone in his mother's voice. "You don't believe it's working?" he asked her directly. Anna Christina chose her words carefully. "I believe you're progressing, Lucas. I just want to make sure you're receiving the best possible treatment based on proven methodologies." Robert set down his fork, his irritation barely contained. The best possible treatment was exactly what we offered Lucas for 3 years, with no result whatsoever. Grandma Zora and Gabriella's method is working where conventional medicine failed. "I'm not questioning the results, Robert," Anna Christina countered. "I'm questioning the methodology. How can we be sure these advances are the result of this alternative treatment and not simply a late recovery? That would have happened anyway." Lucas hit the table, surprising both parents. "Stop! You're talking as if I weren't here. I am the patient. I feel my body. I know what was happening before and what's happening now, and I can guarantee the difference is real." Anna Christina softened her expression, turning to her son. "I believe you, Lucas. I'm just concerned they might be giving false hopes, or worse, delaying a recovery that could be more effective with scientific methods." "What scientific methods?" asked Lucas, his voice rising. "The same ones that told me to accept that I would never walk again. The same ones that filled me with medications that left me dizzy and depressed." Robert intervened. "Anna, what exactly are you suggesting?" She took a deep breath before responding. "I'd like to bring in an independent specialist to evaluate Lucas and the treatment. Dr. Helena Vaughan, a neuropediatrician from Harvard. An impartial evaluation would benefit everyone, wouldn't it?" Lucas let out a bitter laugh. "Another doctor to tell me what I can't do? No, thank you." "Lucas, please," insisted Anna Christina. "Dr. Vaughan is one of the best in the country. She just wants to help." "I don't need her help." Lucas's voice trembled now, from anger or emotion. It was hard to tell. "I'm having real progress for the first time in years. Why mess with what's working?" Robert watched his son attentively. Although he shared his frustration with Anna Christina's interference, he also understood her concern as a mother. "Maybe it's not a bad idea to have a second opinion," he said finally, surprising both Lucas and Anna Christina. "Not to change the treatment, but to document the progress independently. It could even give more credibility to Grandma Zora's method." Lucas looked at his father, feeling betrayed. "You too? I thought you believed in Gabriella and Grandma Zora." "And I do, son, but science is validation, it's documentation. If we want this method to help other people in the future, we need to be open to peer review." Anna Christina nodded, satisfied with the direction of the conversation. "Exactly. I'm not proposing to interrupt what's being done, just to evaluate it independently." Lucas was silent for a moment, processing the situation. Finally, he shrugged. "Whatever. Bring whoever you want. It won't change what I'm feeling." The rest of the dinner proceeded in an uncomfortable silence. When they finished, Lucas asked to be excused, claiming fatigue. In reality, he urgently needed to talk to the only person he felt truly understood him. In his room, he took his cell phone and typed a message to Gabriella. "My mother wants to bring a specialist doctor to evaluate the treatment. My father agreed. I'm afraid they might try to end everything we've achieved." The response came almost immediately. "Don't worry, Grandma Zora always says that truth doesn't fear investigation. If what we're doing is helping you, no one can deny that." The simple words from the girl brought some comfort to Lucas, but a feeling of apprehension persisted. Something told him that a storm was approaching. The next morning, in the small house in Hope Village, Grandma Zora, Sarah, and Gabriella were finishing breakfast when Robert Mitchell knocked on the door, something unusual at that hour. "Mr. Robert!" exclaimed Sarah, surprised upon opening the door. "Did something happen?" "Good morning, Sarah. I need to talk to you about a situation that has arisen," he replied, entering the simple house when invited. In the small living room, he explained Anna Christina's visit to the clinic and her request for an independent evaluation. "I thought it important to inform you personally before you hear it from other sources," he concluded. Grandma Zora, who had listened to everything in silence, finally spoke. "Does this doctor come to learn or to judge?" Robert smiled slightly at the old woman's insight. "Honestly, I don't know. Anna Christina chose her, and from what I've discovered, she has impressive credentials, but she's also known for her skepticism toward unconventional methods." "I see," said Zora, nodding. "She comes as friend or foe?" "That doesn't worry us," Gabriella intervened with conviction. "What we do is helping Lucas and the other patients. That's what matters." Robert admired the girl's confidence. "Are you willing to continue even with this additional scrutiny?" Grandma Zora exchanged a look with her granddaughter before answering. "Mr. Mitchell, when we started this partnership, I said that knowledge shouldn't be restricted for others to accept. What we do, we need to be open to questions and tests. Let this doctor come, observe, question. What is true will remain." Robert felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. He had feared resistance, perhaps even threats to abandon the project. "Thank you for understanding. Dr. Helena Vaughan will visit to the clinic next week. I'll do my best to ensure it's a fair evaluation. After Robert's departure, Sarah expressed her concern. Mom, what if this doctor tries to discredit you? It could affect everything we've built so far. Zora remained serene. Daughter, truth is like water. It can be temporarily blocked, but it always finds a way. If our method is valid, and I know it is, no honest evaluation can completely deny it. Gabriella hugged her grandmother affectionately. You always know what to say, but I'm worried about Lucas. He seemed pretty upset in the message he sent last night. That's natural, Zora replied. He's finally found hope and now he fears losing it. We need to show him that our confidence remains unshaken. At the clinic, news of Dr. Vaughan's visit also caused different reactions. Dr. Marcus gathered the entire team for an official announcement. Starting next week, we'll have an external consultant monitoring our work. Dr. Helena Vaughan is a respected neuropediatrician and will make an independent evaluation of our methods and results. One of the physical therapists who had become an enthusiast of Zora's method raised his hand. Doctor, does this mean we'll have to change our approach? Absolutely not, Marcus responded firmly. We'll continue exactly as we are. Dr. Vaughan is here to observe, not to interfere. I want everyone to document their procedures with even more rigor in the coming weeks. Let's show that what we do has a solid basis, even if it doesn't follow conventional paths. The team nodded, determined to defend the work they had been doing. For many of them, the results they witnessed daily were proof enough of the method's validity, regardless of its unconventional origin. During the days leading up to the specialist's visit, Lucas intensified his efforts in rehabilitation. It was as if he wanted to prove, first to himself and then to the world, that his progress was real and significant. On a particularly productive afternoon, he managed to take 3 consecutive steps between the parallel bars, supporting himself only lightly with his hands. Amazing, Lucas, exclaimed Gabriella, watching with pride. Your muscles are responding. Better and better. The young man smiled, breathless from the effort. I want to see that doctor deny this. 6 months ago, I could barely move my fingers. Gabriella noticed the almost stubborn determination in Lucas's gaze. You're not doing this just to prove something to her, are you? Lucas hesitated before answering. I don't know, maybe a little. It's just, I finally found something that works, Gabby, something that gives me real hope. And now my mother, who wasn't even present in recent years, shows up wanting to question everything. It's normal for her to worry, Lucas. She's your mother. A mother who abandoned me when I needed her most. Gabriella approached, placing a hand gently on his. I'm not defending what she did. I'm just saying that maybe this concern comes from a genuine place. Maybe it's her way of trying to make up for lost time. Lucas looked at his friend, once again amazed by her ability to see beyond appearances. How do you manage to be so understanding of someone you don't even know? Gabriella smiled. Grandma Zora says that quick judgments are like wrong medicines. They only make the problem worse. Everyone deserves the chance to show who they really are. Lucas reflected on these words for a moment. Do you think I should give my mother a chance? I think you should follow your heart. But remember, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or approving what was done. It means freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. Again, Gabriella's simple wisdom left him speechless. How could a 13-year-old girl understand so well the complexity of human feelings? The rest of the week passed quickly. At the clinic, all preparations were made for Dr. Vaughan's visit. Records were organized, progress documented, protocols reviewed. Even Grandma Zora, normally averse to formalities, collaborated by explaining in detail each aspect of her method so it could be recorded. Finally, the day arrived. Dr. Helena Vaughan entered the clinic accompanied by Anna Christina. Tall, with an elegant posture and impeccably arranged gray hair, she emanated a serene authority that immediately commanded respect. Robert and Dr. Marcus received them in the entrance hall. Welcome, Dr. Vaughan, greeted Robert, extending his hand. We appreciate your availability for this evaluation. Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Mitchell, she responded formally. As agreed, I'll observe the procedures for 2 weeks before issuing any opinion. Dr. Marcus intervened. We've prepared all the documentation of the cases we're treating, including complete histories, exams before and after the start of treatment, and video recordings of the sessions. Helena nodded, appreciating the organization. Excellent. I'd like to start by reviewing these materials and then observing some sessions in practice. As they were being conducted through the clinic, Anna Christina noticed Lucas's absence. My son isn't here today. Lucas preferred not to participate in the sessions during your initial evaluation, Dr. Vaughan, explained Robert. He'll come tomorrow for his regular session. Anna Christina frowned but didn't comment. She understood her son's resistance, though it saddened her. In the conference room, Dr. Marcus presented the cases in treatment, highlighting the documented progress. Helena listened attentively, making occasional notes and interrupting with precise questions. Her expression remained neutral, impossible to read. "And where are Grandma Zora and her granddaughter?" she finally asked. "I'd like to meet them." "Of course," replied Robert. "They should be in the main treatment room preparing the next patient." When they entered the spacious and well-equipped room, they found Grandma Zora instructing a physical therapist, while Gabriella organized some equipment. Both turned when the group entered. "Grandma Zora, Gabriella, this is Dr. Helena Vaughan," Robert introduced. Zora approached with firm steps despite her age, extending her hand. "It's a pleasure, Doctor. Welcome to our clinic." Helena shook the old woman's hand, studying her with interest. "The pleasure is mine, Grandma Zora. I've heard a lot about your method." Her gaze then turned to Gabriella, and an expression of momentary surprise crossed her face. "And you must be Gabriella. I've heard you're a fundamental part of this treatment." The girl nodded, greeting politely. "I work with my grandmother applying what she taught me, Doctor. And how old are you exactly?" 13, Ma'am." Helena didn't hide her surprise. "And how did a 13-year-old girl acquire such advanced knowledge about neurology and rehabilitation?" Before Gabriella could answer, Grandma Zora intervened. "My granddaughter has a gift, Doctor. Just as some children are born with talent for music or mathematics, Gabriella was born with an intuitive understanding of the human body and its healing pathways." Helena arched an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Interesting, and can this gift be measured or quantified in some way?" "Perhaps not in the way you're accustomed to," Zora replied calmly, "but the results can be observed and documented, which is, I believe, the purpose of your visit." A slight smile appeared on Helena's lips. There was an implicit challenge in the old woman's words, and she seemed to appreciate it. "Indeed, I'm eager to observe your work in action." The rest of the day was dedicated to record reviews and theoretical discussions. Helena asked incisive questions about every aspect of the method, from the specific movements to the theoretical basis behind them. To Anna Christina's surprise, Grandma Zora answered each question with clarity and surprising depth for someone without formal education. Gabriella, in turn, impressed with her ability to practically demonstrate the concepts. Her grandmother explained. Using anatomical models, she illustrated pressure points, neural pathways, and stimulation techniques with a precision that made even Helena raise her eyebrows in occasional surprise. At the end of the day, as everyone prepared to leave, Helena approached Gabriella discreetly. "You really understand what you're doing, don't you? You're not just repeating movements you saw your grandmother make." Gabriella looked directly into the doctor's eyes. "Yes, Doctor. I see the connections. It's like when some people look at a complex mathematical equation and simply understand the solution." Helena studied the girl for a moment. "Fascinating. Tomorrow I'd like to see you working with a real patient if possible." "Of course, Doctor. Lucas will come in the morning for his session." Helena nodded and walked away, leaving Gabriella with a mixed feeling of apprehension and determination. The real test was just beginning. That night, at the Mitchell mansion, Robert found Lucas in his room, practicing strengthening exercises that Gabriella had taught him. "How are you feeling about tomorrow?" he asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Lucas continued the exercise before responding. "Nervous, but ready. I want to show this doctor that what we're doing is real." Robert observed his son with pride. That determined young man was so different from the bitter and defeated teenager of a few months ago. "You know, Lucas, regardless of what Dr. Vaughan concludes, We're not going to interrupt your treatment, I promise. Lucas stopped, looking at his father with gratitude. Thank you, Dad. That means a lot. Your mother is worried about you in her own way. She made mistakes, and big ones, but her intentions now are good. Lucas sighed. Gabriella said something similar, that I should consider forgiving, not for her, but for me. Robert smiled. That girl has a wisdom that goes beyond her years. Yes, she really does, agreed Lucas. After a pause, he added, Dad, if I ever manage to walk again, it will be thanks to her and Grandma Zora. I'll never forget that. Neither will I, son. Neither will I. The next day, the clinic was in an atmosphere of expectation. Lucas arrived early, more well-groomed than usual, as if preparing for an important presentation. Gabriella, normally calm, also seemed a bit nervous. Remember everything we practiced? She asked while helping Lucas position himself at the parallel bars. Every movement, he replied with a confident smile. Don't worry, Gabby. Everything. We'll be fine. When Helena entered the room accompanied by Anna Christina, Robert and Dr. Marcus, she found Lucas already in position, with Gabriella at his side and Grandma Zora observing discreetly from a corner. Good morning, Lucas, greeted Helena, approaching. I'm Dr. Helena Vaughan. Your mother invited me to evaluate your treatment. Lucas nodded formally. Good morning, Doctor. We're ready to start whenever you want. Helena positioned herself at a strategic distance from where she could observe without interfering. Please proceed normally. I want to see exactly what a typical session is like. For the next hour, Gabriella guided Lucas through a series of progressive exercises. They started with stimulation of nerve points in the arms and legs, moved on to weight transfer movements, and finally to steps supported on the bars. Helena watched attentively, sometimes approaching to better see a specific movement, other times making notes on her tablet. Her expression remained professional and unreadable. Anna Christina, on the other hand, couldn't hide her emotion at seeing her son standing, moving in a way that everyone had said was impossible. At a particularly impressive moment, when Lucas managed to take 4 consecutive steps with minimal support, she brought her hand to her mouth, containing a sob. When the session ended, Lucas was exhausted but visibly satisfied. Helena approached, extending her hand to him. Thank you for the demonstration, Lucas. It was very enlightening. Something in the professional and distant tone of the doctor bothered Lucas. Demonstration? This wasn't a demonstration, Doctor. It's my life. Each step I take is a victory against what everyone, except Gabriella and Grandma Zora, said was impossible. Helena seemed momentarily disconcerted by the young man's frankness. Certainly, I didn't mean to minimize your progress, which is remarkable. But you're still not convinced, Lucas stated, rather than asked. The doctor hesitated before answering. I'm observing, Lucas. It's the first day of my evaluation. It would be premature to form any conclusion now. Anna Christina approached, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. Lucas, Dr. Vaughan is here to help, to ensure you're receiving the best possible treatment. Lucas moved away from his mother's touch. The best possible treatment is the one that works, Mum, and this works. I'm tired of being a case to be studied, a problem to be solved. I'm a person, and I decide for myself what's best for me. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. It was Grandma Zora who finally broke it, approaching with calm steps. Doctor, I understand your position. You have a responsibility to science and to your patients, but I ask that you observe with an open mind and heart. Knowledge comes from many sources, some that your books recognize, others that haven't yet been documented. Helena faced the old woman with reluctant respect. I'll do my best, Grandma Zora, but I must follow the evidence where it leads me. That's all we ask, the lady replied with a serene smile. The following days established a routine. Helena observed sessions with different patients, asked detailed questions, reviewed records and exams. As the first week progressed, something curious began to happen. The doctor, initially skeptical, began to show increasing interest in the method. In particular, she closely followed Gabriella's work, observing how the girl instinctively adapted the techniques for each individual patient. On one occasion, after a particularly successful session with a 10-year-old girl who had suffered a spinal cord injury in a car accident, Helena asked to speak privately with Gabriella. How did you know you needed to alter the pressure at that specific point? She asked, referring to an adaptation Gabriella had made during the session. I felt it was too tense, as if there was a blockage there that needed to be released more delicately. You felt. Can you explain that in more detail? Gabriella thought for a moment. It's like when someone plays piano, Doctor. Experienced pianists don't need to think about each individual note. They feel the music. They instinctively know which key to press and with what intensity. Helena studied her with a new look. Have you always had this sensitivity? Since I was little, Grandma Zora says I was born with eyes that see beyond. And how did you learn the specific technique? By watching, practicing. Grandma Zora taught me the fundamentals, and then it was as if my body already knew what to do. Helena was silent for a moment, processing. Have you thought about studying medicine, Gabriella? The question surprised the girl. My science teacher asked the same thing recently. And what did you answer? That I don't know yet. I like helping people, but I don't know if I need to be a doctor to do that. Helena smiled for the first time since her arrival. With a talent like yours, you could revolutionize entire fields of medicine, you know? Gabriella blushed slightly. Do you really think so? I don't say that lightly, Gabriella. I've been carefully observing your work. There's something extraordinary in what you do, something that transcends formal training. But imagine what you could accomplish combining that natural gift with structured scientific knowledge. The doctor's words stayed with Gabriella for the rest of the day. It was the first time someone from the formal medical world recognized her talent as something valuable, not just as a folk curiosity. Meanwhile, Anna Christina was also going through her own transformation, seeing her son's progress daily and the genuine dedication of everyone around him. Her initial suspicions were beginning to dissipate. In a revealing moment, while watching Lucas work determinedly at the parallel bars, she found herself imagining what it would have been like if she had been present from the beginning, supporting him through the recovery process. One afternoon, while Gabriella was taking a break between sessions, Anna Christina approached her. Gabriella, may I talk to you for a moment? The girl nodded, a bit apprehensive. I'd like to thank you, said Anna Christina, surprising Gabriella, for what you're doing for my son. You don't need to thank me, ma'am. I'm just doing what I know. No, it's more than that. You're not just helping his body. You're giving back something I thought he had lost forever. Hope. Gabriella looked into the eyes of the elegant woman before her and saw something she didn't expect. Genuine vulnerability. Lucas is strong, Mrs. Mitchell. Stronger than he himself believed. All the credit is his for not giving up. Anna Christina shook her head. You're very generous, but I know that part of that strength came from you, from the way you believed in him when no one else did, not even me. A tear escaped, surprising both Anna Christina and Gabriella. I'm sorry, she said, quickly wiping her face. I don't usually get emotional like this. You don't need to apologize. It's normal to get emotional when it comes to someone we love. Anna Christina looked at the girl with an expression of surprise and gratitude. You're an extraordinary person. Gabriella, I hope my son realizes how lucky he is to have you in his life. With those words, she walked away, leaving Gabriella thoughtful. That brief conversation had revealed a facet of Anna Christina that no one had mentioned. Behind the facade of distant socialite and absent mother, there was a woman who loved her son and carried the weight of her own mistakes. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. As the second week of the evaluation approached its end, tension grew in the clinic. Helena had become a constant presence, observing, questioning, testing. Although her behavior had become less antagonistic and more curious, no one knew for sure what her final opinion would be. On the penultimate morning of her evaluation, an unexpected event changed everything. Lucas was in the middle of his session, with Gabriella, practicing longer steps at the parallel bars, when he decided to try something they hadn't planned. Inspired by growing confidence in his body, he completely released his hand's support for a brief moment and took a step on his own. The movement, though insecure and brief, was clearly intentional and controlled. For a second, Lucas Mitchell stood independently for the first time in 4 years. Gabriella was the first to notice, her eyes widening in surprise and joy. "Lucas, you did it!" The young man, trembling with the effort, quickly returned to holding the bars, but his face was illuminated. "I did it, Gabby. I took a step by myself." The small room exploded with emotion. Robert, who was observing from a corner, ran to his son's side. Anna Christina covered her mouth with her hands, tears flowing freely. Even Dr. Marcus, always professional, couldn't contain an exclamation of surprise. Helena, who was documenting the session with a camera, captured the entire moment. Her face, normally neutral, showed a glimpse of admiration. "Impressive," she murmured, approaching to check Lucas's legs. "Did you plan this?" Lucas, still breathless from the emotion and effort, shook his head. "No, I just felt I could try." Grandma Zora, who was silently observing from the back of the room, approached with a serene smile. "The body knows when it's ready." Lucas felt the right moment. Helena clinically examined the young man's legs, testing reflexes and muscular resistance. "The neurological recovery is evident," she declared finally. "The vital signs of the nerves show activity that wasn't present in previous exams." Robert placed a hand on his son's shoulder, struggling to control the emotion in his voice. "Does this mean he can really recover the ability to walk independently?" Helena hesitated before answering, looking at Gabriella and Grandma Zora. "Based on the progress observed so far, and if the treatment continues at this pace, yes, it's a real possibility." The declaration, coming from such a respected and initially skeptical specialist, fell like a bomb in the room. Lucas looked at his father, then at his mother, finally at Gabriella, a raw and pure emotion on his face. "I knew it," he said, his voice trembling. "From the first day Gabby entered my room and said she could help me, something inside me knew it was true." Anna Christina approached her son timidly, uncertain if her touch would be welcome. To her surprise, Lucas extended his hand, allowing contact for the first time since her return. "You were right to want certainty, Mom," he said, surprising everyone. "I deserved the best possible treatment, and now we know what it is." Anna Christina couldn't respond, just squeezed her son's hand between hers, words replaced by silent tears of relief and gratitude. The next morning, the last official day of the evaluation, Helena called a formal meeting with the entire clinic staff, the Mitchell family, and of course, Grandma Zora and Gabriella. The tension was palpable as everyone settled in the conference room, waiting for the final verdict. Helena entered carrying a thick folder of notes and positioned herself at the front of the room. Her face was serious, professional, impossible to read. After 2 weeks of intensive observation, data analysis and documentation of results, I'm ready to present my conclusions about the method developed by Grandma Zora Williams and applied at this clinic. She paused, looking at each face in the room before continuing. When I was invited to make this evaluation, I confess I came with a considerable degree of skepticism. The idea of a neurological rehabilitation method, developed by a lady without formal education and partially applied by a 13-year-old girl, seemed, at the very least, questionable from a scientific point of view. Anna Christina shot a worried look at Robert, who remained impassive while Lucas firmly held Gabriella's hand under the table. "However," continued Helena, her tone subtly changing, "science doesn't advance by closing doors, but by opening them to new possibilities, however unlikely they may initially seem." She opened her folder, removing some graphs that she distributed around the room. "These are comparative data of the 6 main cases treated with the Williams method, as I will now call it. In green, we have the neurological recovery parameters expected based on conventional protocols. In red, the actual results obtained here. The graphs clearly showed red lines consistently above the green ones, with significant differences in some cases. As you can see in all the analyzed cases, the method produced results superior to those expected with conventional treatments, particularly in areas of sensory recovery and fine motor control." A murmur of approval ran through the room. "Helena, continued. Particularly notable is the case of Lucas Mitchell, where the recovery of functions previously considered permanently compromised occurred in a documented and verifiable manner. Lucas squeezed Gabriella's hand, who returned with an emotional smile. However, Helena raised a finger, regaining everyone's attention. There are still aspects of this method that cannot be completely explained by current neurological models, especially Gabriella Williams's ability to intuitively adapt the techniques for each patient in a way that transcends theoretical knowledge. She looked directly at the girl. This ability, which some would call a gift and others extraordinary clinical sensitivity, deserves additional study and formal documentation. Turning to Grandma Zora, Helena continued. Grandma Zora, what you've developed here, based on your years of experience with Dr. Hirano and your own clinical observation, represents a significant contribution to the field of neurological rehabilitation. It's not quackery or folk belief, as some might suggest. It's a structured methodology that, though unconventional in its origin, produces measurable and reproducible results. The old woman inclined her head in a gesture of silent acknowledgement. My formal recommendation, therefore, is that the Williams method continue to be applied and documented, ideally with the creation of a structured protocol that allows its replication by other trained professionals. Additionally, I suggest establishing a research program to investigate the specific neurological mechanisms that make this method effective where others fail. Robert couldn't contain a smile of relief and satisfaction. Dr. Marcus nodded energetically, already making notes for implementing the suggestions. Anna Christina, in turn, seemed to be processing everything with a complex expression that mixed relief, surprise, and a touch of shame for her initial distrust. Helena wasn't finished yet. Finally, I have a personal recommendation, she said, her tone becoming less formal. Gabriella Williams possesses an exceptional talent that should be nurtured and developed. I strongly suggest she receive specialized education in neuroanatomy and physiology to complement her natural gift. With time and proper training, she could become an important bridge between traditional medicine and effective alternative approaches. Gabriella looked at her grandmother, surprised and moved by the recognition. Grandma Zora smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "Thank you, Doctor," said the old woman. "I always knew my granddaughter was special. It's gratifying to see others recognize that too." Helena closed her folder, concluding, "My complete report will be sent to Mr. Mitchell and Dr. Marcus in the coming days. I'm available to clarify any additional questions." When the meeting was officially ended, the room exploded in animated conversations. Robert approached Helena, extending his hand. "Doctor, I don't know how to thank you. Your fair and professional evaluation means a lot to all of us." Helena firmly shook his hand. "Don't thank me, Mr. Mitchell. I just followed the evidence. And the evidence is clear. Something extraordinary is happening here." Anna Christina approached timidly. "Doctor, She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "I must admit that when I invited you, I expected a different outcome. Thank you for your impartiality." Helena smiled understandingly. "It's natural for a mother to want certainty, Mrs. Mitchell. Your concern for your son's well-being is understandable." Anna Christina lowered her eyes. "A belated concern, unfortunately." "It's never too late when it comes to maternal love," Helena responded gently, before moving away to talk with Dr. Marcus about the next steps. On the other side of the room, Lucas pulled Gabriella to a quieter corner. "We did it, Gabby. The doctor agreed that the method works." Gabriella smiled, happy but not surprised. "I told you that truth doesn't fear investigation." Lucas shook his head, amazed. "How do you manage to be so confident all the time?" "I'm not. I was nervous too. But I believe in what we do, and more importantly, I believe in you, Lucas. Your determination made as much difference as any technique we applied." Lucas looked at his friend for a long moment, an emotion difficult to name, growing in his chest. "Gabby, I need to tell you something I realized in these last few weeks." "What?" "You changed my life. Not just through the treatment, but by being who you are, by making me believe again. In myself, in the future, in possibilities. Gabriella blushed slightly, looking away. You would have found your way anyway. Lucas, you're stronger than you think. No, I wouldn't have, he insisted, holding her hands. Before you walked into that room and said those words, Mister, I know how to make your son walk again. I had given up. Completely. And now... He didn't complete the sentence, but it wasn't necessary. Both their eyes were misty, communicating what words couldn't adequately express. The moment was interrupted when Robert approached, accompanied by Grandma Zora. We have a proposal. For you two, he said, looking from Lucas to Gabriella. Actually, for the entire Williams family. Everyone gathered to hear what Robert had to say, including Anna Christina, who joined the group timidly. After Dr. Vaughan's opinion, I'm more convinced than ever that the Williams method needs to be developed and made available to more people, Robert began. For this, I'd like to expand the clinic, creating a research wing dedicated exclusively to studying and improving the method. Grandma Zora nodded, satisfied. And more importantly, he continued, I'd like to establish an educational foundation to train new practitioners. Grandma Zora would be the technical director, and I'd like Gabriella, when she's ready, to assume a central role in teaching and future development. Sarah, who had remained silent until then, looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. But what about her studies? She's still so young. This would be a project for the future, Sarah, explained Robert. For now, Gabriella would continue her normal studies, with the addition of specific courses in anatomy and physiology, if she's interested. All attention turned to Gabriella, who seemed overwhelmed by the proposal. I don't know what to say. Grandma Zora put a hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. You don't need to decide now, my dear. The future is built one day at a time. Anna Christina, who had listened to everything attentively, finally spoke. If I may, I'd like to contribute too. Everyone turned, surprised. I have international contacts that could help spread the method to research centers in other countries. And, she hesitated briefly, I'd like to establish a scholarship fund for talented young people from underprivileged communities who want to specialize in integrative medicine. The unexpected gesture left everyone momentarily speechless. It was Lucas who finally broke the silence. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. The simple thanks, the first genuine one from Lucas to his mother since her return, was received by Anna Christina as a precious gift. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time she didn't try to hide them. It's the least I can do after so much time away. Robert observed the scene with a mixture of surprise and approval. Perhaps there was hope for family reconciliation, just as there was for Lucas's physical recovery. The days and weeks that followed were of intense activity. With Dr. Vaughan's endorsement, the Williams method gained credibility and growing attention. Reports in medical journals and television programs began to highlight the surprising results obtained at the clinic, always taking care to present the treatment not as a miracle, but as an innovative approach based on traditional knowledge combined with modern techniques. Lucas continued to progress. Now he could take small independent steps, still with some instability, but with increasingly greater conscious control. His transformation went beyond the physical, the bitter and isolated. Young man had become a teenager full of plans and dreams for the future. Gabriella, in turn, found herself at an exciting crossroads. At just 13, she was already recognized as a prodigious therapist with an extraordinary gift. Dr. Vaughan's suggestions had opened new possibilities for her future. Specialized courses in neuroanatomy were organized especially for her, adapted to her age, but respecting her advanced comprehension ability. On a quiet afternoon, while supervising Lucas in his independent exercises, Gabriella shared her thoughts. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I hadn't walked into your father's office that day. Lucas smiled, maintaining balance while taking careful steps with the aid of a specialized walker. I would be stuck in that chair without hope, and I would still be just the cleaning lady's daughter, dreaming of being useful like my grandmother someday. Lucas stopped, looking seriously at her. You would never be just anything, Gabby. Your gift would have found a way sooner or later. Maybe, she agreed thoughtfully. Grandma Zora always says that destiny puts the right people in our path at the right time. Like you in mine, completed Lucas with a smile. The moment was interrupted by Sarah's arrival, bringing exciting news. Gabby, a letter just arrived from Harvard Medical School. They're offering a special mentoring program for you. Gabriella took the envelope, surprised. But I'm still in middle school. It's a long-term monitoring program, explained Sarah, proud. You'd have special classes on Saturdays and could attend some activities at the college. Dr. Vaughan recommended it. Lucas observed Gabriella's expression change from surprise to contained joy. That's amazing, Gabby. You'll accept, won't you? Before she could answer, Grandma Zora appeared, walking slowly with the aid of a cane. Her health had improved significantly since the beginning of the cardiological treatment, but her advanced age still required care. What's all this commotion about? She asked with a smile. When she heard the news, the old woman was silent for a moment, her eyes shining with emotion. See? The circle closes, she said finally. What was denied to me by life's circumstances now opens for you, my granddaughter. Gabriella hugged her grandmother affectionately. All thanks to you, Grandma. You taught me everything. No, dear, I just showed you the door. You decided to enter and explore what was beyond it. Your gift is yours, not mine. While the two were talking, Robert and Anna Christina arrived together at the clinic, something that was becoming increasingly common in recent weeks. Although there was no romantic reconciliation between them, a new form of partnership was developing, based on their shared love for their son and commitment to the project that had transformed so many lives. Good news? Asked Robert, noticing the animated expressions. Lucas explained about the letter from the medical school. Robert smiled, not at all surprised. Actually, we already knew. Dr. Vaughan consulted us before making the recommendation. We wanted to make sure it would be something beneficial for Gabriella, not just for the institution. Anna Christina added, and we ensured that all related expenses would be covered by the foundation. Transportation, materials, everything that's needed. Gabriella looked at the two, then at her mother and grandmother, finally at Lucas. It's a lot to absorb. A few months ago, I was just trying to help with the household bills, doing small jobs with my grandmother for neighbors. Now you have a bright future ahead of you, completed Lucas. A future you deserve. Robert looked at everyone gathered there and felt something he had lost a long time ago. The feeling of being part of an extended family, a community united by something stronger than blood ties or financial interests. United by hope, healing, and a shared belief in life's possibilities. I think all of us do, he said, expressing the collective feeling, a future brighter than we ever imagined. That night, as the Williams family returned to their home in Hope Village, now renovated and expanded thanks to Robert's generosity, Gabriella looked out the car window, observing the lights of the city that never slept. Boston, a metropolis. Of contrasts, had been the unlikely setting for this story of encounters that changed destinies. A humble girl from the outskirts, a rich teenager trapped in a wheelchair, a grandmother with ancestral knowledge, a powerful businessman, an absent mother seeking redemption, all transformed by the power of believing in the impossible. As the car proceeded through the illuminated streets, Gabriella smiled, remembering the words that had started it all. "Mister, I know how to make your son walk again." Simple words, spoken with the pure conviction of a child who had not yet learned to doubt her own abilities. Words that had created bridges between worlds that otherwise would never have touched. And at the center of it all was a truth that Grandma Zora had taught early on. The body knows the way back to health. It just needs someone who believes, who shows the way, who awakens the dormant memory of muscles and nerves. Someone who sees possibilities where others see only limitations. 1 year later, the rehabilitation room of the Williams Mitchell Clinic was full that special morning. Friends, family, doctors, and patients gathered to witness a moment many would consider impossible. Lucas Mitchell, now 18, was standing in the center of the room, dressed formally, his eyes fixed on a distant point, his concentration total. The wheelchair that had accompanied him for 4 years was positioned a few yards away from him, empty, as a silent reminder of the path traveled. Robert and Anna Christina were side by side, holding hands for the first time in many years, united by the emotion of the moment. Grandma Zora observed from a comfortable chair, her serene face displaying a smile of satisfaction. Sarah had tears in her eyes, representing all the parents of patients who now found hope where before there was only resignation. And then Gabriella entered the room. Now 14 years old, she had grown a few inches, but her gaze remained the same. Determined, empathetic, wise beyond her years. She walked to Lucas and stopped in front of him. "Ready?" she asked softly. Lucas took a deep breath. "Ready." With a deliberate movement, Lucas took a step toward Gabriella, then another and another. His steps were slow, still a bit unsteady, but completely independent. Without support, without a walker, just his own strength and balance gained through months of tireless effort. When he reached Gabriella, after completing 10 consecutive steps, the entire room exploded in applause and emotional exclamations. Robert couldn't contain his tears. Anna Christina sobbed openly. Dr. Marcus applauded enthusiastically, while Dr. Vaughan, now a permanent consultant to the clinic, recorded everything on video for scientific documentation. Lucas hugged Gabriella, briefly lifting her off the ground in a spontaneous gesture of joy and gratitude. "We did it, Gabby! We did it!" She laughed, her eyes shining with emotion. "You did it, Lucas. You never gave up." Grandma Zora approached, slowly leaning on her cane. "The body always knows the way," she said, her voice laden with wisdom. "It just needs someone to light the path to show the trail." Robert joined the group, putting an arm around his son's shoulders. "This is just the beginning," he said, looking at everyone present. "The Williams method has already helped dozens of patients considered irrecoverable. Imagine how many more we can help in the coming years." Anna Christina, who had become a passionate advocate for the project, added, "The foundation has already established partnerships with 3 hospitals in the United States and 2 abroad. The knowledge is spreading exactly as it should." Lucas looked around at all those people who had been part of his recovery journey. Doctors who had overcome their initial skepticism, therapists who had learned new approaches, patients who had found hope through his example. His mother, who had returned and despite all the mistakes of the past, was sincerely trying to rebuild their relationship. His father, who had had the courage to believe when everyone said to accept the impossible. And above all, that unlikely family that had entered his life when he least expected it. Grandma Zora with her ancestral wisdom, Sarah with her silent dedication, and Gabriella, the girl who had dared to say the words that changed everything. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you all for believing." Later, when the official celebrations had ended, Lucas and Gabriella found a quiet moment in the clinic's garden. Sitting on a bench under a leafy tree, they watched the sunset paint Boston's sky with shades of orange and pink. "And now?" asked Gabriella. "What's the next step?" Lucas smiled at the choice of words. "Steps, many of them. I want to walk more and more, get stronger every day. Next year, I plan to start college." "Have you decided on a major?" "Physical therapy," he answered with conviction. "I want to help other people like you helped me." Gabriella smiled, satisfied with the choice. "And you?" asked Lucas. "How's the mentoring program at medical school?" "Fascinating." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "I'm learning so much, Lucas. Things that complement what Grandma Zora taught me. It's like putting together 2 halves of a treasure map. You're going to be an amazing doctor someday. Maybe. Or maybe something different. Something that combines the best of both worlds. I still have time to figure it out." Lucas nodded, understanding. Both had bright futures ahead, futures that neither could have imagined a year before. "You know what's most amazing about all this?" reflected Lucas. "How a simple decision can change everything. If you hadn't walked into that office that day, if you hadn't decided to try one last time, if my father hadn't given a chance to, an idea that seemed absurd." Gabriella completed the thought. "It's like Grandma Zora always says, sometimes all we need is someone who believes enough to make us believe too." As the sun disappeared on the horizon, casting its last rays over the city, Lucas and Gabriella contemplated the future, with the serenity of those who have learned that the greatest miracles begin with the simplest acts of courage and faith. And it had all begun with those words, spoken by a girl who wasn't afraid to believe in the impossible. "Mister, I know how to make your son walk again." The end. Dear listener, if this story touched your heart, share your opinion with us in the comments. Would you believe in a girl like Gabriella? Leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next stories of hope and overcoming. Your company is our greatest motivation.